and welcome to another video. I'm Paul, this is Out Nerdy, and today we are going to be talking about All Quiet on the Western Front. Now, this dropped yesterday, Friday, on Netflix, or at least it did in the Western Hemisphere, and it is very, very important to remember this is not an adaptation of the book. It is based on the book. Why is this important? Because it deviates quite a lot from the book. It has a whole different subplot which helps flesh it out to 2.5 hours. And let's be honest, you can read the book in less time. And the subplot is actually quite interesting. I'm not going to lie. Well, for me it is. And that is, the subplot is, it has a great big time jump to the last week of the war. And we have the German delegation arriving for the armistice talks on the 11th of, well, which would eventually become, the armistice there. And the two stories are interlinked. It's a bit like Das Boot, or the new version of Das Boot, where you have the story of the German submarine, and you have the story of, the French resistance, and, the very cliched, well, it's just, that bit is very cliched, let's be honest. If you've seen Das Boot, it's got every World War II, a lower cliche there is. The only thing missing is Officer Crabtree. So, like I said, this is two stories in one. It does work. It does intertwine a little bit. The only problem for me, and I'm going to give you an example of a scene, is they come out of the light in the beginning of the books, and I'm going to reference the 1930s film, because that's the one I've seen most, and I read the book. And in that, at the nearer towards the beginning, they come out of the line, and obviously they've suffered from some losses, and they have double of the rations for every man. The cook is resistant, but the officer comes in and tells him to dish them out. Now we also have that kind of scene later on in the film towards the end, but it loses its weight, so to speak. So what I mean by that is, once you see them get the rations, they're sat around and laughing and joking, as I imagine they did once they got out of the line. There's almost a kind of innocence to it, where that is missing from this film. Because this film goes from early 1917 all the way to October 1918, and the very end of October 1918, it loses so much weight and impact. It's a good film, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but it loses a lot of its impact. Why do I say that? Well, because in the book they start off and they go through basic training, they progress, even though in the book it opens up with them, at the front, you see them, you get the details of them going through basic training, how they hate their training corporal, how he picks on some of them because they're wetting the bed, things like this. And it helps you to care about the characters. The film misses this out, so you'll get core scenes in the film, but there's no weight or emotion behind them. They're just really cool action scenes. Now, if you've never read the books and never seen the films, you may love this. This is actually it's a really, really good World War I film. But as I said, it's based on the book. It's not adapted. So if you're a purist and you want to see things in chronological order as they happen in the book, you're not going to get that. I want to highlight Daniel Brühl, who is in this as Herzberger, who is the German diplomat negotiating what will be the armistice/surrender. he's obviously a very good actor. In everything he does. He's especially good in another World War One film called Joy et Noel, which is called, in English, Merry Christmas, and that tells the story of the 1914 Christmas truce. That's another good film you should check out, especially around Christmas time for obvious reasons. So, I said it is good. It's well shot, beautifully shot. In fact, you're not going to get many as good as trench scene as you might get anywhere else. Not recently anywhere other than 1917. There is a fair bit of action in it. The character deaths, some of them are out of order. Some of them are complete works of fantasy. Now, like I said, if you're an army and you don't know what's going on, you're fine with it. However, I've got the book. I first read the book in senior school. Actually, this is from, senior school. I just never gave it back. And I've seen the 1930s film. Incidentally, this Netflix version could be seen as quite graphic. It is nothing compared to the 1930s film. That is graphic. Anyway, I said character deaths. It's not anything I say isn't spoilers. The book's been out for almost 100 years now, and there has been 2 films about it. Chances are you at least read it in school at some point, or you may have watched the films if the audience I normally aim for is a crossover. So it is good. The character deaths, the 2 that bothered me was Kaczynski's death, Kat. Now, the way he dies is complete work of fantasy, if you understand what I'm saying. He gets shot by a French civilian. This is not how it happens in the book. In the book, he ends up with he starts off with a leg wound, and as, Paul flings him over his shoulder, he gets hit by some shrapnel in the back of the neck. And that's how he dies. Now, in the film, that's not how he dies. It's a complete work of fantasy and fiction, and I'm really not sure occupying German forces would have let French civilians keep firearms. So, like I said, the only 2 things that fit the book are pretty much the beginning and the end. But the way it ends is... Now, in the end, Paul is shot by a random sniper at a stupid time, a stupid place, a stupid day, a stupid moment. It was just dumb luck that he gets shot. Well, it's not in the films. He reaches out to grab a butterfly, but so you could argue it was his own fault because he lifted his head above the parapet. But you know the point. You get the point I'm making. It's just a random death. In the film, the last scene is a high-ranking German officer does not like that they've lost the war and sends his men out in a death or glory battle 15 minutes before the armistice comes into effect. Now, fighting did go on right until the very end in some sectors. This is known. This is historically accurate. But this has it where there's no artillery support, there's no machine gun cover, there's nothing. The French are partying in the trenches because they think the war's over, and the Germans are walking across, getting bayonets fixed, ready to charge. And halfway through it, well, towards the end, Paul gets run through with a bayonet through the heart. Final whistle's called for, war's over, and then you just got Germans and French soldiers mingling in the trenches. 10 seconds after the battle. Like I said, some people will love that this is a new take on the film. And I'm not going to lie, for the most part I enjoyed the film. It's a good World War One film. It is not a good All Quiet on the Western Front film. Like I said, I've read the books. I'm quite fond of the book. And it does kind of deviate a lot. Anyway, as a rule, yes, go watch it. It's worth 2.5 hours. Sunday afternoon, it's bouncing down with rain. You've got naught to do. Switch it on. It is in German with English subtitles, but you can change should you wish to. Alright? And that's it. That's my review. It's good. Don't expect a fateful adaptation, and you will be laughing. It will be good. You will like it. However, if you're expecting it scene to scene, this may not be the film for you. Anyway, that's all for today. Please like, share and subscribe, comment below, and I will see you again. Bye for now.